Hey YouTube, what is good? How is it going? So this week I'll be showing you how to retouch, or not really retouch, but how to composite an image shot in the studio, create a 3D scene, mix it up with Photoshop and create a final output image. So let's roll that intro and let's just dive straight into it. So I already opened up Photoshop and I got some files open. So this will be the final one, and this will be another one. So first things first, we had an idea which I've seen online, and we wanted to not really recreate it, but see how close we could get to actually creating that image. So I've started playing around with Blender. Since the pandemic, I've started mixing up some things. So I started doing some more 3D, learning some 3D because so started up with Blender, and step by step I learned how to progress in it. So we had an image and we needed to create a 3D scene, which was like an entire row of pillars. And then the model was in there with a halo of blue around her. Now, I created this scene in Blender. I will open that up in a bit. And while I was creating it, since I didn't want to let the model come up front to test it, I just tested it on myself. So this is me cut out in a scene. So this is like the original 3D scene. Then we got a shadow I created. We got me, which was shot against a green backdrop. If we can eliminate the background, this was the background. And if we just move along, some color correction to me, adding some smoke, adding the halo, and then deleting it with a layer mask. So that was the final image I got. So it was really close to the image we want to create. It was not there yet, but by just testing this, I was pretty sure and confident that I could create it the way I wanted it to create it. That's something really important. First thing, make sure that you can deliver what you promise to a model. Now, if we move along, this is the model shot in the studio. So this is the environment created in Blender, which is free, by the way, so go check it out. And then this is the model shot in the studio. So we tried to mimic the light we created in the three-dimensional space so that the model, when we cut her out, already has that nice glow on her body instead of just like having to Photoshop it in, which is also possible, but let's make our life easy and try to get it as close as possible in camera. So in the previous videos, the behind the scenes, you see me mixing up with the lights to make some sort of realistic shine on her. Now the next step was blending her in with a gradient map. And then another one was color balance, to just play around with colors. Now that's the second step, so blending her in. And then when we open up the big file, which is like pretty huge, we get all these layers. So let me just drag this layer stack out of it. And then we have all these layers completely created. So what I'm going to be doing now is opening up Blender, and then we can see how the 3D scene looks. I'm not going to explain too much about it. I'm just going to show you how it looks. And then I'm going to combine everything here in Photoshop. So I'm going to check and uncheck some layers so you have an idea. So did you already try something out like this? Did you know it was even possible to combine these things? A three-dimensional environment combined with a model? It opens up doors to more creativity, more possibilities, because this way you can create some things that are not really possible in normal life situations. Now, let's open up Blender and let's see how that looks. The first thing you see is this screen. It looks intimidating, a lot of panels left, right, and everything. So we're just gonna open it up, the scene, and then we're gonna see what we get. So let's open it up. So when we open up Blender and we've opened up the file, this is how it looks. I know it's like totally intimidating, a lot of panels, a lot of things you can tap on, tap off. So this is simply set the environment. So we got some poles. So the pillars, we got them on the left side. And then we have a backdrop because we wanted to have something in the background to create that vibe. Now, the good thing about Blender is that you can create it in a way that you mimic light which you cannot see. So when we go to the render view, so this, let's see if I can make it a bit bigger. So this image we finally see when we open up Photoshop. So these are the lines, these are the pillars. So the original to the thing we have here, it's the same. This is everything that has to happen before with the colors and stuff. I'm not gonna go too much into it. So you create something simple, which is like a normal floor plane, a background plane, some pillars, and then some lights. So this is the camera, the plane, the pillars, the model, which is represented by a plane. And then we have another light. So it's nothing more than just normal cubes and pillars. I'm gonna stop explaining this part because this part might be a little bit confusing. But you can see these are both lights. These are lights. These are lights. This is a light, this is a light, and then it's just a normal plane, and this is the camera view. That's it about Blender. I'm not gonna go too much into detail. So, but this is created, and then later on when we import it in Photoshop, we import it as a JPEG or whatever file format you want, but you open up the base image. So this is the first step. Then the second step is making everything darker and just playing around with the perspective, the definition. And then later on, we take in an image from the web, and it's just a roof. This was the roof, and then just softly with a soft brush, we masked it in. It's the same with the smoke. Later on, we introduced some shadows because once we have Cynthia here, we had to introduce some shadows to make her really connect with the floor. Otherwise, it would have been a little bit crazy if she's floating in the air. And then, so this is the shadows part. Then we have the subject, which is Cynthia. So this is Cynthia cut out. Then we painted in some extra hairs, which is nothing more than just taking a normal brush and just painting it in slightly. So you just paint it in slowly with a brush. I'm using a tablet. That's why I got this weird looking glove on. I'm using a pen tablet, so I can immediately paint on my tablet. The next step for this would be adding the smoke. And we want to add the smoke over the entire image, but not around her. So we've put a layer mask over her as a subject. So this is the layer mask to make sure that she's not getting any smoke on her. The next part was the circle, which was created in the previous video. It's the same setup. I created this in 3D, but I was not able to get it transparent. So we mixed it up and we've exported it out. But in the end, we decided to just make it in Photoshop since the previous video, somewhere up here, probably a link, you can see that you can easily create it in Photoshop. Then we did some coloring to blend everything together, add a vignette, add some more smoke. And if you want to make smoke realistic, you have to work in different layers of brightness. So the more bright something will be, the more depth you will create, the more darker you will be, the more you will push it to the back. The brighter it is, the more you pull it to the front. Then we added some neon lights. It's just like, yeah, it's an image, like it's this image, and then just masked it out. Googled it online. I looked up for some neon, and then just masked it in really slow, really with a soft opacity. Just paint it in. Details in the background is just like looking for different images which has some texture in it, blending it in again with a big brush, low flow, really important, soft, big brush, low flow. That way, when you're using masks, you can build it up so you're not really limited to just doing one stroke. You can do you can slowly build it up to the effect that you are happy with the result. Make the roof a little bit darker, create a vignette around it. Yeah, play around with bring in some more brightness to the overall image. Lit up this area to give it a little bit more glow. Then we did some liquefy. And then we just masked it out again. Made some corrections to her. So we, for instance, created a little bit more contrast so that she would blend in a little bit more in the background. The same here. This is on the environment. We introduced a little bit more magenta in the shadow parts. And then we did the final sharpening, and then yeah, that's the final result. So let's open it up big. So this is like, so it really depends on how much time you spend in it. If I remember correctly, it was about 3 hours I've put in this entire edit. So if you compare it next to each other, let's see. Let's do 2 up vertically. Let's close myself. Nope. Let's put them side by side. There we go. Dragging this back here. So right is the original one, left is the one we mimicked. So it's just a matter of what you like, what's your preference. There's not a good or a bad way. For me, the left image is more a fantasy image. It's not really something you would see in a fashion magazine or anything. That was not the goal. It was just the goal to get as close as possible to an entire scene created in 3D. It was my first attempt also, so I was really happy with the result. At this moment, I'm already further in the 3D space, but that's something for later. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you had something from it. I know it's a lot. If you got something you want to see specifically, just let me know below. I'll gladly reply to it. And maybe I can do a future video about it. So when you go from the 3-dimensional image to the entire retouched image, you can see it's a completely different change. Really important when doing these things is take your time, don't rush it. And make sure that you create for creating and just make your image, let it sit for a few days, go back to it, have a look at it again, and adjust if needed. So that's it for this week, and hope you enjoyed this video, and then I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, notifications, subscribe, like, all the good stuff. See you. Bye-bye.